Secret job. Hey X, I have something for you. It is nothing paranormal, but I think you might be interested in reading this. I am not giving any specific details on location, names, etc., since I signed an NDA, but if you are smart enough, maybe you can figure something out. I apologize in advance for all of the context and details, but I honestly want you to take your time on this. Be me, health and safety engineer for a worldwide company, which name will not disclose. Company has various lines of business within the real estate, facilities, leasing, projects, and many other sectors. I work in the facilities area. We basically make sure to maintain and run the client's facilities and office without interruption while being accountable for their equipment, air conditioner, substations, electrical equipment, and so on. My job is to make sure our employees working at a client's facility do not get injured or hurt while working by implementing standards, procedures, training, and things alike. In December last year, my company closed a deal with one of, if not the largest data company worldwide, for the maintenance of its office, facilities, as well as its data centers. I visited several of its premises in my local state in order to perform a risk assessment and determine which safety controls will be necessary, employee insurance policy level, PPE, etc. We will be absorbing a considerable workforce of technicians, previously hired by another facilities company, so basically, they will be our employees working for the client. I am almost done with the job when I detect something off in our database. Around 6 employees that we will be hiring in the next months have different data. The database does not state in which location they will be working. They have a high salary, way up for our standards. Additionally, they were not hired by the previous company. All this makes my alarms go off, since a high salary could mean they are exposed to more hazardous conditions. I also need to make sure to assess the area where they will be working. In the past, we have been sued and tried to be fooled for similar situations, where clients do not show the whole scope of work, so we think employees will be working on certain conditions, when in reality, they are exposed to higher risk, and when an accident happens, we get in trouble and discussion with the insurance company, sometimes lawsuits. I escalate this with my boss, and we make a huge deal about it. We get in trouble with other departments, HR, finance, which try to persuade us to overlook this, but we are firm in our decision since we do not want to be blamed afterwards should an accident happen. After some weeks of internal arguing and consulting it to the client, they agree to a risk assessment. Finance overlook the high salary. I receive an invitation to a call where a client employee inquired about my interest on knowing this location and what the process for the risk assessment consists of. He explained to me that I would need to sign an NDA and that I could not take notes nor disclose with anyone the facility's location, activities, assets, pretty much anything. I will not be able to perform the risk assessment under such conditions, but at this point, I agree to a visual inspection to make sure those technicians are not working under high-risk activities. If so, we need to increase their insurance policy. I meet the same man at the client facility. I have been there before. He takes me to an office where I sign the NDA. This is not new for me, as I have signed a couple before. I sign the NDA. The man told me to follow him. He drives me out of the facility and drives me around for an hour. I am weirded out by this. We arrive at a suburban area. Okay, this is new for me. We stop in front of one house. The neighborhood looks as normal as any other I have seen. The man says follow me, and we get in. The house looked off, like a house made out a dentist waiting area. Furniture and finishes are not of normal house, but more like an office. We walk to a room, and before we get in, the man says, "Do you need to use the restroom? You won't be able to inside." I replied, "I'm good." We enter the room, and this is when things got weird as fuck. There are 3 security guards. 2 of them are standing there with assault rifles. The other one is sitting in a desk with a computer. By far, the most fucked up thing, besides the whole scenario, was that the 3 of them were using masks, covering their entire face. Those were not normal face masks. Never during this pandemic have I seen similar masks. They were similar to K95 masks, but they extended to the entire face. It seemed as if the purpose was to cover the entire face and protect the identity instead of protecting the eyes, which were exposed by a tiny opening. Picture pic related, but from the eyes, Dawn was exactly like a K95 mask. Before I could say anything, the man hands me over an enveloped mask and tells me to put it on, and points to a small room next to me that I had not noticed. I do as I am told, remove my normal face mask, and put that on. I go out, and the man tells me to put all of my belongings in a tray, similar to those in an airport. I place my keys, wallet, notebook, pen, cell phone in the tray, and one of the guards inspects me. The man got out of the room and tells me to please place everything on the tray. It is the procedure, don't worry. The man does the same, and one of the security guards nods. He opens yet another door, leading to stairs going down. We go down the stairs for what seems like 30 to 50 feet deep. By this point I am really puzzled and freaked by the whole thing, but I played it off as if I am used to it. We get down and go through a hallway leading to a huge area with thousands of servers, basically a huge underground data center. I've been to similar data centers, but as far as I know, there is no need to build it underground. The area is huge for an underground facility in a residential area. I do not even know if it's legal, at least 500 square feet, but do not quote me on that. Sorry, I forgot the picture. There are at least 15 people working there, all of them with the same masks. Most of them are checking servers and working on PCs. I am informed that the 6 technicians work there in different shifts, 2 technicians per shift. They just need to make sure to maintain the whole place and keep the temperature and HVAC equipment adequate for the servers to work. I am introduced to the 2 technicians working at that time. I introduce myself and try to welcome them into the company. They barely talk to me. We proceed with the risk assessment. I ask them the usual stuff, like tools they use, accidents they have experienced, equipment, etc. But before giving any reply, they look for this man's approval. We do a walk around the area, gathering as little information as they can provide me. Some of the questions I asked were answered as, that is not within the scope of the work, or they won't be taking care of that. I see some other doors leading to who knows where. I asked about it, but the man replied, no, the technicians do not work outside the DC area, and they do not go there. At this point, I thought I should not push things any further. The whole thing lasted about an hour. I forgot about the risk assessment and pretended to be gathering information, when I, in reality, was just thinking what the hell was going on. At some point, I said I have enough information. We left the DC area, and I just pretended to be fine with everything. We got upstairs, picked up my stuff, and was told to place the mask in a bin. The man drove me to the facility where I first met him. During the way we barely spoke, except when he asked, so the guys, will they be getting hurt? I said no, and talked about working and assessing far riskier areas for other clients. I keep pretending what I saw was within the range of normal to me. I have performed this kind of inspections for military and military subcontractor companies for quite some time, even laboratories, but never had I ever seen something like this. Anyway, I pretended that was the case while talking with the man. I was dropped in the parking lot in the first facility and told that everything was okay, and huge thanks for allowing me to do my job, for which the man replied, okay then, so I expect no further inspections or risk assessments are required, right? I said no, and we said goodbye. I went home and continued my day as usual, wondering what the fuck. Next day I told my boss I could not provide any detail because of the NDA. He just asked, but is there any risk? I said no, everything should be fine, but at this point I do not even know. Pic related is similar to what the DC looked like. Any thoughts? Do you know if any of this is usual? I haven't been able to find masks like those that I described or even pictures of them. Let's compile the strangeness. Very secretive and hidden location. Check. Identities of the guys in control. The ones with guns hidden. Check. A lot of tech in a closed-off area underground for unknown purpose. Check. People working there, acting like they are scared to speak up without acknowledgement of superior. Check. My thoughts. This place has information about projects and people that must be kept safe from the public and must survive a severe disaster. Could be a sort of bank, or then the doors in the facility lead to the actual working areas, and this was a facade. A clever ruse to make you think it's a conspiracy of some kind, when it's actually the surface of the pond. Source my ass. I used to work for the government of a small country. They had data banks for purposes I had no knowledge of. My job was to be the guy with a gun. I knew absolutely nothing. I was told to immediately open fire on anyone who would disobey the orders of superior. I asked no questions. I no longer have to work ever, so I look up paranormal shit on X and troll YouTube videos. Just to clarify, the people I interviewed were not scared at all. As far as I know, some of these people have been working there for years. They just looked for an approval before disclosing something they should not. Something else I think of is, how do these people get there? By car? Do they all live nearby in the same neighborhood? There was no place to park 15 vehicles. And the neighbors, did they know? Are there even neighbors there? I don't know, man. Or even the doors in the facility lead to the actual working areas, and this was a facade. My exact thoughts. I doubt they would pay that much for 6 technicians if their only job was maintaining a DC, especially when there were already a dozen other employees to do that. They most likely experiment on some stuff down there. And OP, being an outsider, wasn't allowed to know about that. And maybe it's for the better, as he would clearly be dead by now if he shared the experiments with us. I'm still worrying though, OP, and hope you don't need to suffer from consequences. I know there are secret underground facilities with secretive information with conditions like the ones you talk about, but why bother building that under a residential area? Wouldn't it be better in a secluded area with heavily armed security? No space for parking. Good observation. It was just like that with my job I mentioned. I would get taxied there for every shift. I never saw the driver because the back seat was separated from the front and the car had tinted windows. I looked up the license plate once and it was not in the registry. Some shady shit, but I did not ask questions. That wasn't part of my job. Some things are kept secret to avoid mass confusion and possibly panic. I know some stuff that I will take to the grave with me, but I'm still quite curious as to how the world actually works. Secrets are not necessary if no one has any of them. Be back in the 80s. I have a temp job working as an archaeologist for the Bureau of Land Management in Lander, Wyoming. Lander did not have a lot to do. So one weekend, I drive to Casper. Hey, bars that don't play only country western music. Spend most of Saturday chatting with a hottie. Bar closes, but things don't go the way I would have liked with the hottie. Get in the car. Start driving back to Lander. Bad decision. It's really late, and I'm pretty tired. Eventually, I decide it would be smart to pull off the highway and get some sleep. A hotel is not really an option. That part of the world is barely populated. End up in a rest area. I pull right into a parking spot, set the brake, and go to sleep. Note the pull right into the parking spot. That'll be important. Later on, I'm jolted awake by the sensation of my car rocking. I assume I'm rolling and grab for the parking brake, but it's set. The car stops rocking. I get out. It's a clear night with a full moon. Looking around, I notice something weird. Remember how I pulled straight into a parking spot? My problem is I'm now pointed the wrong way. I would have had to back in when I parked. My car is flipped 180 degrees. I get back in my car. I'm wide awake, and there's no point in trying to get some sleep, so I get back on the road and drive all the way to Lander. Over the next few days, I consider my options. Earthquake? There was none recorded, and it sure seems unlikely that one would have so precisely relocated my car. Some drunk local boys screwing with an out-of-stater. Maybe, but they sure would have had to clear out in a hurry after I got out of my car. There was no sign of anybody. Somebody slipped something into my drink when I was in that bar. Actually, that seemed the most likely, but I had no other symptoms beside that event in the rest area. Shrug it off as that was weird and get on with my life, but the next week or so is strange. Things I knew I completed at work were still pending. The boss recalls conversations with me that I don't remember. There are some new people in the office that I don't remember seeing before, but others say they have been there for years. Likewise, some folks I knew at the office weren't there any longer, and nobody else remembered them. I don't think I'm in the same universe that I lived in for my first 20-something years. Not really a Hollywood or mainstream film experience, but here we go. I worked for an independent horror company from 2006 to 2011. A few of my friends were the ones who started working for them in 2005, and they were the ones who introduced me to them. I was just an edgy 19-year-old who was into death metal and horror, and I needed a job badly, so I accepted the job offer. Nothing bad happened in the interview, but there was a strange aura the owner in the room gave off, like warped vibes seeping through tiny cracks in the walls. The first few months weren't so bad either, just him introducing me around to individuals, both with the company and those with other studios, who had connections to him. My job was to ship off films ordered from their websites in the supply room, located in the basement of his house, with most doors, including the one heading upstairs, locked. This did not worry me, given how naive I was at the time. I would be paid under the table for most of my career there, with cash in envelopes delivered unmarked on my doorstep every last Friday of the month. We would have occasional events every once in a while, such as watching various films, including those on their very short early catalog, or being dragged to some small conventions selling the overpriced films. Around about a year in, I realized that this man must be a con man, but still pressed on as I got special employee discounts and the occasional free gift. My two friends grew increasingly weirder as time went on, as one went completely missing for 3 months in 2007, and the other friend nearly killing his mother and then himself in late 2009. This is where things got even more dark. The missing friend hardly talked after this incident and lived in seclusion for the rest of his life. The owner and some of his closer workers became incredibly distant after both events occurred and would stare at me while I worked. I became the only one working on shipments until more arrived 2 months later. About 3 months into 2011, the owner invited me to go camping with him on Halloween, and I went. He drove to my house at 2 a.m. on the 31st and knocked on my door loudly. I hopped up with a bat till I saw him and quickly put on clothes and hopped in his car, still suspicious of what he was doing. As soon as we arrived, I saw 3 men in masks that would be repurposed in a later film by them, and a fireplace alongside a camcorder on a tripod. This never struck me as odd, because Halloween, and I figured this was a film they were doing, and they needed my help. As soon as I got out, I was knocked out cold. I woke up in the same forest, with slightly stained and ripped clothes, with everything else taken from my body, including my keys and wallet. 3 hours before I would reach anyone, the lucky man who drove me to my house, a final letter sitting on my porch with $100, and a letter telling me I was no longer needed. Around 2012, his company would see a small upsurge in popularity, especially edgy horror YouTube channels. I still wonder what they were up to, and what they did to my two friends. Needless to say, I left after 2 weeks of getting my shit together. I eventually got my shit back in a box, along with another $100, with a t-shirt with their logo. I still felt their presence there, and occasionally here, and I still have some of their early films that are quite rare and out of production now. Good to know. Off to the store for some hollow points and candles. I've already got some ash out back from a big bonfire I had a couple of nights ago. Also, OC time. This is one from my senior year of high school, about 10 years ago. Be me. Just started lurking on K. Really want to go in the woods. Recently got my FID. SKS for my birthday. Fuck yeah. Invite my only Hasguns friend along to go camping near Appalachian Trail. He says yes, brings a Winchester lever action in .30-30. Plan is to start up at northern part of Massachusetts, follow the trail south for 3 days. We brought plenty of food and fuel, not much water, as we plan to be near rivers most of the time. Buddy brought a harmonica. From now on, I'll call him John. We get dropped off near where we want to start and start hiking, covering pretty decent ground for the first few hours. Slow down a bit after a quick lunch, still moving along pretty well. We stop for the night, set up our tent. I start the fire, boil water we collected. John cooks up some of our food, plays harmonica for a bit. We're just sitting around the fire, eating and talking. Bring up the fact that we haven't seen anyone all day. He shrugs it off. It's a bit shitty weather and cold, so it's not that strange. Put out the fire, and we go to bed, sleeping with unloaded rifles. We get up the next day, strike camp, eat cold breakfast, and start hiking again. Suddenly, we hear loud footsteps coming up the trail behind us, running really fast. We look behind us, figure it's a trail runner or a deer running from something. Ready rifles, just in case. The second we turn around, the sound stops. We are a little weirded out, but continue along for a bit. I realize that the woods are quiet as fuck, ever since we heard the running. Mention it to John. Relax, man, it's almost winter. Most things are probably just hiding away in their burrows. Decide I'm just being a pussy. Ignore the silence. We stop for lunch near a stream, and John collects a bit of water from it, sniffs at it to make sure it's semi-clean. Recoils. What the fuck? Anon, smell this water. Wary that he's gonna splash me in the face, I take it and smell it. Oh god, this is awful. Smells like rotten meat and piss. We follow the stream upriver to see if a dead deer or bear fell in and is rotting away in it. After a few minutes of walking, we come to a cave that the stream is flowing out of. John walks in right away. Hey John, wait a minute, we shouldn't. Oh, come on Anon. I've got a flashlight and I'm not gonna fall in, so let's just check it out. Okay, I guess. Grab my own flashlight and my SKS, following John into the cave. We come to a huge-ass cliff where the water falls down. Not really a waterfall, but whatever. It's smooth as hell, made of this really shiny black rock. Alright, John. Looks like we can't go any farther. Let's go back. Okay, Anon. Just let me look over here. I thought I saw... Aha! Look at this, man. A staircase cuts into the side of the cliff, barely visible unless you look straight at it. John immediately starts climbing up. I follow him, but I'm just about shitting my pants. We are about halfway up, when suddenly we hear this voice. Help me. Just repeating the same thing, over and over, in the exact same tone of voice, exact same inflection. It sounded like a broken record. The voice was creepy as fuck. It sounded like a human voice, coming through a fucked up speaker, crackly at the edges, and sort of deeper than it should be, obviously feminine. It's coming from the top of the cliff. John shouts up to it. Don't worry, we're coming for you. Just hold on. John, wait a goddamn minute. What the fuck, Anon? Are you just gonna walk away from somebody who might be stranded or hurt? No, but I don't think that... Then let's fucking go. He double times it up the stairs, rifle slung over his shoulder. Help me, rings out again, voice gradually getting louder and more distorted. He's going a lot faster than I am. That's what saves me. He gets to the top of the stairs, shines flashlight toward the sound. Ma'am, are you... Suddenly stops talking. I'm just a flight below the top. I can hear him walking. Sounds really jerky but steady, like a metronome or something. Steps suddenly stop. At the exact same time, the voice stops yelling for help. I just barely hear John whisper, "Of course, whatever you need." Crunching noise, sound of dripping liquid. Help me, rings out again. It's a different voice, and it takes me a second to recognize it. It's John's voice. Oh shit. Fucking sprint out of there. It's a miracle I didn't break my neck on those fucking steps. Managed to contact a friend who is going to pick us up in 2 days. Tell him something got John, freaking out. He calls the cops and forest department. Tells me I have to meet them near a ranger station at a small town. I manage to get out of the woods, meet up with cops. I claim a bear ate him. Lots of questioning. Realize they think I might have murdered him. Finally break down and tell this old grizzled ranger dude what really happened when we were alone. He just nods. There's some strange things would happen up in those mountains. Might be able to head up there soon and take care of it. What the fuck? Is this guy serious? He smiles at me and nods towards the wall of his office at the ranger station. A bunch of mounted skulls. They look like fucked up deer, moose, and goat heads. Curvy horns, long jawbones, huge ass eye sockets. Now, I'm off to go kill that bear of yours. I'll make sure them city boys know that you didn't do nothing. I'm sorry about that friend of yours. Good hunting. Thank you kindly. I still cannot get over it. Especially since about 2 weeks after that, the paper printed a story about an individual who wished to remain nameless that had taken down a rabbit grizzly not too far off the Appalachian Trail. There was a case a long time ago in Sweden that always made the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. Restaurants were attacked by armed men in camo, who temporarily took all inside hostage. They had a weird but terrifying MO. Nothing was stolen, but among the captives, one was chosen at random. This unlucky soul would be brutally, and I mean brutally, tortured to death. Then the assailants would leave. The police tried tracking them, but eventually only came up with abandoned uniforms in the woods. As I recall, someone suggested the Hand of Glowies playing a gruesome training exercise for when or if World War III broke out, when there really would be RWDs, and they wanted their operatives to be conditioned enough to do fucked up shit to anyone deemed an enemy, to make, I guess, cutting some rando's dick off and deep frying it in front of him seem as mundane as mowing a lawn to whoever was meeting this out. There have been a freaky amount of violent deaths in my family. A few of the ones that happened before I was born include: grandfather killed in a bar fight when my mom was just a teenager. He was shot through the head. His brother was trampled to death by horses. Grandmother's brothers, all 5, died in a fire along with several other people. Grandmother's mom was run over deliberately right in front of my mom. She was 12 years old when it happened. She said the car backed up and ran great-grandma over multiple times before speeding off. Of the ones that I was alive for, one of my uncles on my mom's side was murdered in his sleep by an intruder. Another one was crushed to death on a construction site. On my dad's side, a bunch of men have been killed in car crashes. Dad's oldest brother, Dad's dad, 3 of his cousins, and 3 of my cousins. Kinda made me nervous about driving. Felt like we were kinda cursed. One day I'm coming home from school, taking the freeway exit. Now I'm speeding along a highway. I'm the only one driving on it for about a mile. Listening to a podcast, kinda getting highway hypnosis. Gonna be approaching a major intersection soon. From afar, I can see there's one car sitting at the light. It's red, in the left-hand lane. I'm driving in the right-hand lane, so if the light turns green, I'm just gonna blow past him. But then I see a guy standing in the middle of the road. He came out of nowhere. Fuck, I'm gonna hit him. Hit the brakes while veering into the shoulder. Pop. Tire blows out. Adrenaline rush. I look around. The guy is nowhere to be seen. By this point, the light has turned green, and the car sitting at the light takes off. Instantly gets T-boned by a huge pickup truck. That would have been me. I call the ambulance immediately. Pretty sure the guy fucking died. It might have been a hallucination, but I choose to believe it was a guardian angel. Alright guys, I'm currently on the way to Mexico. Now, there's a place that my father has land where he plants crops. Probably over 500 acres in between 2 mountain ranges, so it's literally in the middle of nowhere. But something weird happened to my uncle while he was there, taking care of equipment. My uncle is just a traditional ranch native. That being said, my dad also spent a lot making a pump well from an underground river that's located in between the ranges. My uncle is staying there by himself for a few days/nights. His story goes, "Be uncle, get woken up in the middle of the night, gets up and walks to the gate that overlooks the whole land. Sees someone standing by my dad's well. Claims this person has a very strong thin light, almost like a laser pointing at the well. Out of nowhere it turns and faces towards him. Described it as if it had a mask, but it was protruding like a muzzle for a dog. Says it shines the light on him. Wakes up the next day in bed, shaking, shit scared. Leaves that same day and tells his wife. They do a tradition where they cleanse him from bad spirits. I have always been skeptical behind the story. Like, I don't see why someone like him would make up a story like that. Plus, the description matches a few encounters, if I could remember, and he doesn't know about extraterrestrials and their connection with water, so it adds some authenticity to his story. Either way, I'm going to try to contact something while I'm there in the middle of the night. Hopefully this thread is up when I get the chance to.